folks, this is Pecktec, and welcome to the Water Change Companion. This week's guest is Steve from Brooklyn. Before I get started, I'd like to take a quick shout out to my Patreon subscribers. Thank you very much for your help. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Dee's a fellow I've known for a really long time. We haven't had a lot of FaceTime like one-on-one together, so it was really great to get to know him a little bit better and then talk to him for an extended period of time over the internet. He's primarily a saltwater guy, but he also does some summer tubs and has lots of good advice for beginners, does product reviews, all kinds of stuff. He's a real neat channel, very underrated. He's been around almost as long as I have and struggling just like me to get those subscribers. So be sure to check him out and subscribe if you're interested. I won't keep you waiting. Here he is.
Fine.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to assume it's working. We'll just go with that.
Why, good man, give it a college try, old chap.
I mean, worst case scenario, we get to talk again, right?
Yeah. No problem with me talking. Ask anybody.
Yeah, you're a real easy pick. You know, it's like, man, he's really. I've been really enjoying the Reefing Collective episodes.
Yeah.
They're really great to put on while you're working, you know, and stuff. I do the work from home thing, and I've enjoyed listening to them while I work. I've learning a lot. In fact, I went out and bought one of those bubble traps today.
The bubble trap. How did you like it?
I haven't got any. I mean, I literally bought it today.
Oh,
I was like,
we're going to trap bubbles, everyone.
But it's such a cool little device. Like, you put food in there and stuff, and then you kind of lift the magnet off, and it floats up and captures the fish.
That was the first time I saw it. I was like a deer in the headlights. But that's the beautiful thing about the collective. It was just, we had so many projects going, and it was a great team because you had people at every level. You know, Ryan's great. I've known Ryan for a long time, and Sean was setting up multiple systems, so he has a lot of product knowledge. You know, so I felt like I was the old guy, like technology, computer. Not in my day. We use a paper clip and a spiral notebook. You know, so good mixture. It's a shame we had to take a hiatus because Sean was working and I was working vaccination. I was literally jumping into some shows in my car on the way from work because, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. And then, you know, and then Ryan's in Canada and Sean's on the West Coast. We're basically a triangle, you know, Canada, Colorado, New York.
How did you guys get together to do those? Like, I mean, how did you meet? I guess it's just online stuff.
Well, the true story is I know Ryan a long time. We talk all the time, so I follow him. I follow, what's going on. And I was actually watching a movie with my daughter. You know, everything is pay and watch on your screen. And I was like, oh man, I'm getting ready to miss their show. You know, they first started off, and they had a problem. The application that they were using was crashing. I was literally had my laptop in my lap. I'm watching, I forgot what movie it is with my daughter. It was like some cartoon. And I was like, oh my God, their thing just froze up. So I literally jumped into StreamYard, started a stream, and emailed him and says, I got you, buddy. Just jump on and we keep it going. And, you know, I'm a people that know me, I'm very animated, as you can say. I got the Brooklyn thing, my hands always moving. I'm a never let a friend fall type of guy. Like, never, if you can help, you try to help. And I just like kind of jumped in there. So quick great. Reflexes, I saw that.
But, I dropped my pen.
But, you know, see a need, fill a need, you know, we've known each other a long time, and it kind of balanced out. We had Cindy and Sean and Ryan and myself, and meeting up on Saturday. And it was really tough. It was really tough, but we had a lot of fun. I drove everybody nuts. I broke out the sock puppet. That was like the highlight. I don't know where Filter Sock came from, but he's staring at me now. And it was all talking about fish, and there was no one way to do it. That's the thing I liked about the Reef Collective. It was like people signed on. We had people that never had a tank. We had people that bought their first tank, and we had the tank offs. Like there was no such thing as a bad tank. I don't care if you had one fish and a rock. Send it in there and build up confidence. We had people that actually send in submissions for a contest. One week they had maybe two corals. The next week they had like, okay, I'm going to do it again this time, and they built confidence and posted pictures, and that's what I enjoy. So I'm glad that you got the enjoyment out of it. That's what it was for people that were at work or just coming home, and you're like, oh man, I can't go out of my house. We could sit and just talk about fish.
You guys really, you have a good chemistry together. I like to, I think with podcasts and stuff, you can tell when people are friends. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? When they're like when they really like each other and stuff. And I think I get a kick out of that. You guys really seem to know each other and like each other a lot. And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah. And what you don't see is we pretty much a lot went into those shows. We would be texting each other. I'm not a text guy. I've kind of had to become a text guy because we
Oh yeah,
would
I know what you
talk.
mean.
Yeah, we would talk every day. It was like, oh, you know what? I saw this new thing is coming out. Have you heard of it? This, that, and then we'd be calling, we'd be doing research. We would say, oh, I've tried it. And we'd be talking all week because you're not going to put something on that, A, I don't believe in. Well, Joe Blow just sent us this, so let's promote it. I'm a guy that is critical of everything. Like someone sends me, like the bubble trap. The bubble trap, that was the first time I saw it. The creator was on there. If you see it, I grilled him with like 100 questions. Like, well, how did you do this, and what kind of magnet is it? I mean, these are questions that people are going to ask, and they have the right to honest opinions. If I don't like something, I will tell you. I will tell you, well, this is a great thing, but it's not right for that person. Or what if you have to catch? Can this kind of fish fit in it, or can that? And he came back, great answers, great feedback, and that's what it's all about. I mean, some people go on YouTube, they say, "Oh, D, well, you've been on here a long time. How come you don't have that many this follower? Or how come you never done this? And how come you?" It's because I have to sleep at night. Sometimes, like, yeah, literally, yeah. I mean, I looked at a product one time, great product, but the thing bummed out after like 3 weeks, and you couldn't get the people on the phone. And then when you got them on the phone, they really didn't have
Oh
an
yeah.
answer. And I was like, you know what? No, because if people come to me and they say, well, D, you said this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. No. So that was the beauty of the Reef Collective. Maybe one day we may, start it again when everybody's, becomes available. But, the fact that we had multiple, uh, observations, multiple opinions. It kept everybody honest.
Right.
I know, like Fluval, I've met Fluval at shows, great products, and some things are good for one application, and some things are good for another application. Like you say, a 15-gallon. I have an 11-gallon reef actually, which was a challenge with Aquion. Aquion gave me the tank, and they donated. Actually, didn't give me the tank. They donated to Brooklyn Aquarium Society. I'm the membership guy, so I bought the tank in an auction. And somebody says, "I
Uh-huh.
bet you can't make that a saltwater tank." And I was like, "Well, if you have the discipline to manage a small tank, which is really tricky, then you could do it." And there were issues with it. They don't make this line anymore. And I talked to them. I says, they made a light that was made for plants, but the plant was actually seated on top of the light, and the light shined down. So they actually got, yeah. If you picture this cube as the tank, and
Uh-huh.
this is the light, and they don't make it anymore. So I'm not knocking Aqua. I'm just gonna show what the issue was.
Right.
The plant actually sat on top of the light like a decoration. So I says, well, how is the plant getting light if it's on top of the? the plants on top. So I said, you know
You
what?
need
I'm gonna
another
make
light.
that. I'm gonna make that tank work. I'm gonna make that tank work, and it's housing my breeding pair of spotted cardinals, which I have to create a name for. If anybody out there has a name for 2 saltwater spotted cardinals, leave them in a comment down there. But you can make
Are those like
anything.
pajama cardinals?
They're similar to pajama cardinals, but probably twice as big.
Huh?
And I have to compare them to like a leopard type of spot. Like they're black and gray, black spotted. So hard to find, but yeah, beautiful fish. And they're in an 11-gallon salt, which I didn't intend to become a reef tank. But what is this? I guess 2 years or no, 3 years later now, I guess it's a reef. So
I,
does your daughter still have that tank?
it's empty in the corner of her room. Does that
Okay.
count? Well, here's what happened. So everything was kind of chugging along. We made some mistakes early on, uh, but according to the comments section.
Tap water? Tap water?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
no.
That's usually the number one.
Is it really? Is that the number one mistake you find?
It's
Like,
it's 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 possible to do, but usually it's a mistake because people will try to put coral in it and they don't realize even though you treat the tap water, the chemical makeup is still in that water. So if a coral has not ever been exposed to detoxified chlorine, it's like throwing you in a swimming pool and you smell the chlorine. It can irritate them, and then you come up with a whole bunch of other problems. And but it can be done. That's another video I'm working on now.
oh,
I'm
okay,
I'm
that'll be
working on.
interesting to see. Because she worked at the store, she would just bring the water home. So we
Perfect.
actually, Fluval had sent us salt and stuff, and we never used it. I've still got it in there.
Hmm.
And I wasn't about to set up an RO system.
Not for
Um,
one tank.
no, not for just that. Well, I thought, well, hey, I could do discus too. And I mused about
Oh,
it, but I don't have a good place in the house to put it, and
okay.
I don't have a lot of space under my sink.
Hmm.
I might redo if I ever redo the kitchen. I'm going to make a space for it, right?
But then
So
you have to have the space to store the water, and that becomes a project. One thing leads to the domino effect.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like and on and on and on. I want to put a sink in the garage, and I think if I had water running in through there, I could put like Mike from Mass did, where he'd take the big 50-gallon
Hmm.
garbage thing and he would just like pour it in there. He was really smart too. Like he would take his wastewater and
Do you
put
know
it
how long I
into. Do you
nagged
do that?
him? You know how long I nagged Mike before he created the saltwater tank? Mike, if you ever watch this video, he'll give me kudos. He never wanted to set up the saltwater tank. And I kept saying, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. I swear I will help you at any point. I'm proud of Mike. I love Mike. Mike is my brother from another mother. We met at the Aquatic experience a few times. I think I was with him when we met.
Yeah,
But
yeah. 2018, I guess.
18, I think. But the same
Yeah, I
thing,
think it
he was
was.
scared of the mistakes, and we all make mistakes. I make mistakes to this day. So your daughter was bringing the water home. She had the
Yeah,
tank.
and so um, she she got. I kind of let her take the lead. It was kind of one of those parent things where they want a pet, and you're like, well, if you take care of it, and
If
she
I
was
kill
old
it,
enough to where, yeah,
if I
if
kill
you
it,
take care of it, then we'll do it. If you want me to like take it over and stuff,
mm-hmm.
you're mistaken. It will die.
No,
So, and I probably would have just taken it, but
mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be her thing, and so we were making some videos about our journey and stuff.
I was
And
watching.
unfortunately, after you've made videos for a decade or so, and if you make a video about something that you're a beginner at, you take a lot of flack.
Criticism.
Well,
Yeah,
and I try, like I don't call them haters, right? So they come on. And a lot of people very respectfully will inform me of
it
the
can be
mistakes that
harsh.
we're often making.
It can be harsh. I've seen a few of
Sometimes I
those
think,
comments.
yeah. Well, sometimes I think there's a
Like,
language barrier, and
oh
the nuance is gone.
no, they
Like
know.
you
There's some of
wrong.
the you wrong. Subtitle: You wrong, incorrect, incorrectus mistakes.
But we so one mistake that people kept telling us that we were making is she wanted to bring in some. I'm going to use the wrong terminology here. She wanted to bring
Shoot,
in some not coral, but well, I guess it is.
frags, I
The
guess.
rocks, yeah, the
Oh, live
frags. You know,
rock,
she wanted
live rock.
the live rock. Okay, so we put some live rock in, and she wanted it to be truly live
Mm,
and have the bacteria and stuff. And everybody's
okay.
like, no, you need to dip it. You should dip it before you put it in and
Oh,
stuff.
she
We're
brought
like, well,
already live rock in, so you don't know what's on the rock.
yeah. So we also brought in like the bristle worms and the little tiny starfish and
Mm-hmm.
all that, which we thought was great.
Ecosystem
Like,
till there's like 4,000 of them, and like,
yeah, at first we were like,
oh,
oh
what's
my
that?
god, look, there's something crawling out of there. That's pretty cool. Wow, that was just alive in there, and it came home and in the
Yeah, it came
newspaper and
home.
stuff. Yeah,
It's like
and
aliens. It comes out of the egg and goes. Ah!
so that was eventually bad, and I think she got aptasia at one point, and we brought home something that kills aptasia or eats aptasia. I think it was
One
a
of the
snail.
yeah, you'll bring out the camel shrimp or the peppermint shrimp, or they're
She was
I don't
never.
I don't it's something we all do. Even I have friends that have my mentors. I consider my mentors in the aquarium society. Like I have my go-to people like Steve. He knows who he is. And I'll say, Steve, have you gone the chemistry route? Like, have you found to put this in here or this happens? And we all do the same thing. I mean, your mistake is no more intense than any other mistake that we do with freshwater. We do the same thing. We bring plants straight from the store, drop them right in the tank. Next, you know, you have 4,000 snails. This tank behind me at one point had so many snails. When I tell you there were so many snails, uh, New York, blah, 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 he knows who he is. Gave me I was taking them out with tweezers every day. And then I met gentleman from Flip Aquatics, his wife, at that same show. And she says, oh, D, shout out to his wife. I love her. I met her one time. I love her for that. She gave me the snail trap. It was a little snail trap, and
Ah,
I dropped it in there, and I was catching 20 snails at a time, 10 snails at a time. And over the course of time, I got it under control. Same thing with the saltwater tank. We make the same mistakes, which is the only reason I make the videos really simple, is because no matter what you do, a fish tank is a living thing. It becomes an ecosystem. So you will, by definition, create live rock, which means you create living organisms become live in the rock through bacterial growth. You'll get bristleworms. Nobody ever adds bristleworms. I got bristleworms, and probably every tank will have bristleworms. They're not detrimental. They're part of, what is it? The life cycle. Life
yeah.
finds a way. That's my favorite phrase. Life finds a way. But in seeing it and becoming spooked, you'll say, oh my God, I have to get something to get rid of the bristleworms. Then you'll get this. And then you'll see Aptasia. Oh man, you know what? Aptasia X. Let me get the Aptasia X. And wow, what's my pH? My pH is high. It's too low. So you're trying to do all of these things, and it kind of spirals out of control. But if you tackle one thing at a time, if you got algae, let that algae become your focus. You can run the lights a little bit lower. Even temperature, you can monitor your temperature. Usually, if your temperature is really high and your lights are really high, you'll get algae. It's like the summertime, like when spring comes and your plants blossom and bloom, the things happen in the fish tank. If you can tackle one thing at a time and control that panic reflex, you can run a tank. I've had tanks that were 2 gallons just to say, let me see if I can do this. And, I just had a 2 gallon tank with a 5 gallon bucket of water. Like, I would keep a mixture of salt water. For my 11 gallon, which I've been lazy, I keep a 5 gallon bucket of water. So I can always change 5 gallons of water with 5 gallons of water in, or 2 gallons, and clean the tank. And that helps. So, if she wants to start it again, We can start square one. You don't even have to have coral. You can have a beautiful tank with rock and the right fish, and that can become like a beautiful centerpiece of the house. Now you do all kind of rockscapes, and if it doesn't scare you, you'll like it and you'll move on to the next level. Then you'll get a 40-gallon tank. Then you have people 50-gallon tank. My friend bought a hundred and what is he? No, not 100. He bought a 210-gallon tank, and I think he had a 40-gallon breeder. And I was like, okay, well, people think that getting a bigger tank is easier. But if you go too big, you have the opposite problem. Now you're changing 30 gallons of water. You're changing 15 gallons at a time, or to dose, you're dosing 20 milliliters instead of 5 milliliters of whatever you're using. So it's the KISS method, whether it's baby girls 15-gallon or 10-gallon, or if you have a 40-gallon, it's baby steps. You got to start from square one. And I always say, start simple. Start with the rock. I don't care if it's dry rock, a little bit at a time. My best friend is a book, not even the internet. If you,
Yeah.
I'm using tap water in a tank right now just to see. I'm got a project. I'm looking at local species and water conditions, and trying to look at local wild species and the effects that they have. And that came up. The fact that we treat tap water doesn't mean that all of the chemical makeup of that tap water is not still there. So if you take a fish from the wild and put him in this completely different environment, yes, he's going to either adapt to it or perish, for lack of, they're going to perish.
Yeah. I mean, when you take tap water and you put a conditioner in it, you're detoxifying it. You're not removing anything.
Exactly.
Whereas RO water is run through several filters, and it actually removes a lot of stuff. And even it doesn't take out
No,
everything. I mean, there's still hormones, I think, pass through all that.
that was
And
really scary. Really,
yeah,
even your pipes. Well, we don't realize if you take the cap off of your faucet, there's a little filter cap. Whoever cleans those? There's metal, there's buildup, there's all kind of sludge that even your drinking water and the water that you wash your dishes with run through that sediment every day. And you don't think about, well, if I'm putting that in my fish tank, I'm actually putting metals in my fish tank from my pipes, from whatever's in that tap. And even in the freshwater, I just had a massive plant die off, which was really funny because my friend puts tap water right in his tank. And I says, okay, I have planted tanks here. I put tap water in my tank. When I tell you every leaf off the kambamba dropped off that night, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Kabamba is really
wow,
tall and it's really thick. Like there's a lot of leaves. That plant, all the leaves, I just had all those little bristles on the surface of the tank. And I was like, wow. I treated the water with the not the stress coat, the water conditioner. I let it sit for a day to make sure it mixed. I put it in there, and this is a 5-gallon tank. I changed about a gallon of water. Every bristle of that plant came off, and I know it was the water. It
how
was
strange. What do you
100%.
normally do?
I usually, for that tank, I use the outside water that I collect. I collect water from my container pond
Rainwater.
because I'm
Yeah,
raising killies and I was afraid of the pH, yada yada yada. So I says, okay, let me try that. The killies were fine, but the plant's reaction showed me that, wow, we think we're treating that water, and there was something in the water that those plants immediately had a reaction to.
that's
Immediately.
really odd.
Because the RO, like you
Now
say,
you,
the RO I use no problem. This tank I use outside water as well. I have used tap water on it. Slowly but surely I'm kind of conditioning it. Yesterday I added tap water to it and no problem. But the makeup of that tap water was not something that I could test as negative. I tested for the pH, tested no ammonia or anything. But one day, immediate reaction.
that's super odd. I mean, my on my tanks, I take water. I have a well, the filter you're talking about. I avoided that. I just removed it and put my Python connection. and now it's been there so long, my wife doesn't even notice it.
Yeah, but it's
She
funny
forgot what the sink used to look like.
it's funny because if you look at those little screw off caps, everybody has pipes. Pipes age. Everything from the city goes through those pipes, ends up in the cap. So you don't know what has a reaction to it. So
You
with
want to
that,
gross yourself out. If you've
oh,
got one of those coffee mugs,
hmm
those insulated
with the
coffee mugs,
filter in
take
it.
off that.
Oh, the
Well,
rubber stuff.
yeah, you take off that rubber gasket and look in there.
I do that,
Who
buddy.
Nobody does that.
I
Well, you
take the
should
gasket
every
off
couple of
my cup.
weeks.
Yeah, I take the gasket off the cup and clean that rubber gasket because it's actually
Yeah,
really nasty. But
it is.
I
It's
I did a
terrible in there.
video. I did another video because me and my wife go back and forth because I drink tap water. I'm in New York. I'm Brooklyn, New York. I said I'm gonna die guns a blazing off of tap water, good old New York tap water. So she buys bottled water. So I says, you know what? Good experiment. I have RDO unit. I have all these fish tanks. And you're buying water. I says, could your water be better than the water I'm getting out of this $300 RO unit? So I tested the tap water. I tested her bottled water, and I tested the what is RO, the tap water, and something else, some other water I had, whatever. And the bottled water had a higher total dissolved solids level than any other of the water tested, than any of the water straight out of the tap or the RO water. It was the three of them. It was the bottled water, the RO water, and the tap water. The tap water was so close to a TDS of for those that aren't familiar with TDS, it's total dissolved solids in your water. It was so close to the RO unit water that it was like, wow, I'm better off drinking the tap water than the bottled water because the bottled water had a TDS of like 15 or 13. But if you want to see that test, you can go look to that water video that I did with the TDS. I was really shocked. And when I showed her, I says, look, my fish are swimming in water better than what you're drinking. I'll give you the water. I'll give you the water change water. You can drink that. You're probably better off.
That's crazy that it was so close.
So yeah.
I was gonna say too, like, so when I do my water changes, my water goes through the Python directly into the tank, and I add dechlorinator as I'm pouring it in. Like, I don't even pre-mix it or anything.
Well,
But
that's what my buddy does. So I says, well, let me try it. Let me try it. But it had such an immediate reaction. And now it's funny. A week later, I did the water change with the pond water again and the RO water,
yeah,
and that plant's grown back. Kabam, certain plants are more sensitive than others, and it could be just a change. It could be a drastic change in maybe the water parameters, but I don't want
I've never kept
people
that plant either. Yeah,
kabamba.
yeah, I've never had that particular one.
Some places you can't keep kabamba. I've heard some places it's illegal to keep this kind of plant or that kind of plant.
Yeah,
But this is one of the reasons why we as aquarists make videos. I love your videos on setting up. I remember when you made the steampunk. I don't know if it's a steampunk tank with the
yeah,
lid on the top, steam pipe, steam pump. I loved
yeah.
that tank. I love that tank
It's still
because
going.
I love it because nothing complex went into it. You put the water in it, you put the plants in it, it got light, and just watch it transform. Whereas, okay, I could go to a pet shop and I could see someone say, I want to do a Takashi Amano Aquascape planted tank, and you want to buy CO2 tank. That's about $100 for the tank. A regulator is another $200. You got the $400 lights on it, and it fails. And the disappointment on people's face when they spend a lot, like they think they're really trying. When it fails, it's such a disappointment that many of those people never go back. So when I see your tanks, I always watch your videos because it
Well,
reminds me
thank you.
it's something that I would set up. It's the soil, it's the plant, and that's like, okay, I got a little bit of hair algae, but I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna wipe it off, I'm gonna remove it, and then you go through the whole process. Whereas people see the hair algae where, oh, this guy doesn't have any hair. I gotta get algae remover. I gotta try to get rid of this. And you panic and it just spirals. So I'm a big fan of yours.
Yeah.
I always use that as a model. You're in my top three, like
Oh,
aquascaper.
thank
So
you.
congratulations to setups. and the ease of maintenance are my
That's
big
the
thing.
key. I mean, I'm very very lazy.
You too?
I
I
do
didn't
not want to
realize.
spend every waking moment inside of those aquariums. Like I want them to look good because I'm showing them to thousands of people, but I want them to and I maintain them. Like I want the creatures inside to have a good life and stuff, and the plants and stuff.
Hmm.
But it kind of it took a long time to get to where I understood what balance meant
Balance. You
for an
said it right
aquarium,
there. Balance.
and that's the most important part of like saltwater, freshwater, paludarium, whatever you're making. You got to find that balance, and you're there when you have less work to do.
This tank behind me is only one. I didn't realize that I had 13 tanks because I didn't, like you end up with another tank, and then there's another tank, and there's another tank, and it's like, well, you know what? Let me see if I can keep this. So maintenance is very important. So, this tank behind me, one of the stores was closing. A store, been around a long time, beautiful store. They had this 50-gallon cube. I always wanted a cube that was big enough to actually grow plants up. So when I built this tank, I says, I'm not putting any filtration on it. I want it to be like a biotope. I want it to be self-sustaining. So I built a filter sponge. I took the filter sponge, like you a matin filter, PVC, and I
Yep.
made the DIY filter sponge. And when then this the rocks in this tank are about 20 or more inches high. They're almost 2 feet in height to hide that filter sponge. And I ran that tank until the plants grew with that filter sponge. And I was
Yeah.
never able to grow plants up until I realized, like you said, it wasn't the equipment. It was the waiting game. It was the patience. It was the let it find it. What is it like in Finding Nemo? Let us see what squirt does. Let us see what goes wrong and what doesn't. And when the plants started to grow, I moved my fishing from outside and I said, I'm going to use the water that they're in and just let it do what it does. So I put that principle into everything. With the saltwater tanks, I have 3 tanks here that have no sump. No sump. 2 of them have no protein skimmer. Actually, 3 because my protein skimmer conked out. So I have 3 tanks with no protein skimmer. The SpongeBob tank has no protein skimmer for the past month, 2 months, because the pump went. But everything is enclosed in that tank. So everything in whether a freshwater tank or a saltwater tank comes down to the biological cycle. The bacteria is not only in the rock but in the gravel. It is the plants growing. Now I have mint. I've put actually some gardening plants because I'm growing herbs and I wanted to see just how much I can grow in this plant. The more plants I get in this tank growing, the less filtration I need. You see, I just cut off my pump. I cut off my pump with the hydros. And the fish are accustomed. It's the plants during the light cycle. They're kicking off oxygen. They're kicking off oxygen thanks to photosynthesis, our big friend, and
Right.
it becomes self-sustaining.
So
So
so in a freshwater tank, like what helps me get to the balance part is lots of plants. Like get the plants growing, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. What happens in saltwater? Do corals and the mushrooms that you have in there and all that, do they all kind of fill a similar role,
I'm glad you
or do
asked
they just
that.
add to it?
I'm glad you asked that because the science is very similar. Bacteria are bacteria, whether it be in a saltwater tank or freshwater tank. Not the same uh, genus of bacteria, but the bacteria feed off the nitrogen cycle and they create waste, which in that cycles the tank. The same thing happens in the saltwater tank, but your bacteria is living in live rock. It is living in the sand. It is living in, if you have biospheres or the biological blocks and things, they house the bacteria. So you have to find the balance between the amount of bacteria that you need in the tank and the life forms that you put in the tank. So That's why I'm not a big pusher of instant start, although it works. The same thing applies, but the problem is when you instantly add it, you're kickstarting the system without naturally having the system find its balance. You're actually throwing the bacteria in there and waiting for it to get acclimated, like a fish. So the same principle. You add more rock. You don't even have to have the rock in your tank. If you have a sump, you can have very minimal amount of rock in your tank, have all of the rock in your sump, and have a beautiful aquascape. So the same thing.
Yeah. One of the comments I got is, I guess I was talking about the filter for that saltwater tank, and someone said, no, don't worry about the filter. All your bacteria is in the sand. Like, it says all the pros know that it's all in the sand. How true is that?
There is bacteria in the sand, but there's also, you have to realize, your detritus also lives in the sand. So if you're vacuuming the sand bed, it's like having a filter for a freshwater tank. And some people take that sponge out the filter and rinse it, and now you're starting your bacteria cycle from scratch. Or what I learned to do, and what we kind of learn as we go, is you'll cut that sponge in half. Maybe you take half the sponge out, leave half in there. The same thing in the saltwater tank. If you're relying on your sand bed to be your bacterial management system, then you have to be very careful how you maintain that bacterial bed. I have no sand in the nano tank that I'm calling SpongeBob, because I started it with rock and I wanted to be able to kick all the dirt up and siphon it out. So I didn't put sand in there. But you can do it with sand. But now, like I said, if you vacuum in that sand bed, you could be removing all the bacteria, and now you're starting it all over again. So either you're dosing it with living bacteria in a bottle, but now how do you establish the balance? I find that trickier for a person that's new to the hobby. Rather than just start it, go through, you might get a little diatom bloom, a little red algae bloom, but when it goes away, you'll actually see it going away instead of trying to control it from a bottle.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I find too, like the quick start bacteria is okay, but I don't feel like I've ever really cycled a tank with it. Like, I put it in there to counteract the soil that's really reactive, especially like aqua soil or any of those kind of
Mm-hmm.
plant soil products, because they kick up ammonia. Like there's an
Yes.
instant release of ammonia, and so that bacteria kind of helps keep the plants from being overwhelmed by it. Like the plants will absorb some of the ammonia too, but they'll melt off because they're just like ammonia bath for the
Mm-hmm.
first couple of days. And you can counter that with a lot of water changes too, but that goes against the lazy side. Right? So,
Well, see, I wanted to ask you, I had a question, because I had a question about that. I've started tanks with dirt. I've started tanks
yeah.
with fluorite black,
Uh huh.
which
Yeah.
are seeded or kind of what infused substrates. But there's the $1 million question. I've been told that they do not become depleted, and I've been told that they become depleted. Now, what side of the fence are you on that? Like, do you feel you have to replenish those substrates, or do you feel that they last? Like maybe it's a water change thing.
So, like the fluorite products are clay,
Hmm.
and the way they work is they absorb nutrients, so
Okay.
they self replenish.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like they've got it baked into it so much as they absorb the nutrients, and then the plants kind of tap into them and suck it out, and then they absorb more. I think that they could eventually. There's some people that have said this has come up with like anoxic filtration concepts and
Hmm.
stuff with the cat litter and all that. Well,
Yeah, I've heard about the
some
cat
have
litter.
said that
I'm
it
scared of that.
works. Like, I've done it twice, and I'm scared to say it, but it works really well.
You don't
Like
have
I
a
don't want
cat
to
in
look
it.
at it,
You don't have a cat in there, do
huh?
you? You don't have a cat in there, do you?
Not in it.
They
I
might be
don't
fertilizing
like
it on the side.
season it that way.
The cat may be fertilizing it on the side. Like, you got a little fertilizer in there, buddy.
Well, like what I do with like fluoride and the cat litter and all those things, sometimes both, is I put them at the base, like the very bottom layer,
Okay.
because they'll kind of live forever down there. Like there'll always be something if the tank is long lived. About 1 out of 5 of my tanks ends up being up for a real long time. So sometimes I crash and burn. Sometimes I get bored. Sometimes there'll be other things that happen. You got to make those videos, right? So
Yeah,
you got to
right.
go.
Oh,
It's like, you're looking lame today. Goodbye.
that's a
We're
lot
going to
of
put up another
pressure.
tank. Yeah, it
That's a lot
is.
of
It really
pressure.
is. But so I put them at the base. I put that stuff at the base, and then I'll usually on top of it I put soil. So the soil will quickly get all the plants growing and doing good, and then the fluorite and the other stuff at the bottom will kind of sustain it once it's already grown. So those roots kind
Okay.
of go through that soil, they get the good nutrients and stuff, and they go deeper and they get into that other stuff, and that kind of sustains them long term. And
Yeah,
I
because I
did a
put
tank.
dirt there. I put dirt under.
Yeah.
I watched your video where you did that in one, and I did it with the dirt
Uh-huh.
because I didn't know whether the dirt became inert or the fluorite became inert. And I says, well, I don't know which one, if they complement each other or if I'm just dumb luck. Like the plants
Well,
growing
the
is just
dirt
dumb luck.
dirt will eventually go, but it takes a long, long time. It's a very long process for it to all
Hmm.
break down where it's not useful anymore. My trouble with the dirt when I did my dirted tank was that uh, when I'd pull the plants out, it just make a mess,
Poof.
and like I didn't cap it enough. That was my big mistake. And I'm gonna do another dirted tank hopefully soon.
Well,
That means one of you guys got to go.
well, you want, oh,
Looking at these tanks, it's
they're
like I
like,
got 13 tanks too. That's
well, I
about
got
three too many. Really.
I got a secret to that I found a while ago by accident. And I was gardening. I was actually gardening. And I don't know how much, when you own a house and you have a lot of potted things. I kept watering plants with potting soil. And when you watered
Uh
it,
huh.
the soil would float over the edge of the pots. And it got me so annoyed. I was like, now I got dirt all over the place. So I
Right.
was I was I was playing with mixes. And I think Rachel Leary, I think she spoke at one of our meetings, and we were talking about dirted tanks, and it came up, and I was like, well, I was thinking about mixing it. And she's like, well, I mix it with peat, and I mix it with this, and I was like, well, I mixed the dirt with sand and peat until it came into a nice even mixture that fell through your hands. Like if you dropped it, it didn't poof, it wasn't light. It made it a little
Right.
sustainable. So I mix it with peat and I mix it with a little bit of sand. And if you add the water, like you put a bowl in your tank, you put a bowl in the tank and add the water, it won't poof up. And once it
Okay.
settles, the sand, like I have it in this tank, I can pull my plants out and it'll collapse along on itself. It won't go poof like a cloud, a cloud of dirt that's
Right.
like all your plant now your glass is dirty. So I found that a little bit of sand and a little bit of peat, and peat's pretty light, but the sand kind of prevents that cloud of dirt smoke.
Right.
And then I'll cap it. I'll
Yeah.
cap it with gravel or something or sand. You were telling me about the sand. I'll tell you, Ryan was really scared of putting his sand in the tank. I don't want to divulge too much of his. He's got a really big tank coming, and he's like, "Wow, what if I put this in there?" And there's like a big cloud of dirt comes out. And the capping is the key. Like the sand, you pull a
Yeah.
plant out, and that sand kind of collapses on it. Great, great, great
I,
tips.
I put way too much clay in it too. Like you could put red clay in there, and that one red clay feeds bacteria,
Oh yeah,
and also plants that need a lot of iron.
grow
It helps
towards
them a
it.
lot too. But I put way too, like I put like probably 3 times the amount I really needed.
Well, do you pound it flat? You flatten it
Yeah,
on the bottom, or you put those
I made
balls
little
in there?
balls, and I put it all the way through that 55. I put all all the way
But
through
now,
there,
if you
and
if you pull those plants out, would they be attached to that clay? I'm curious as to, they're going
Yes.
to grow towards a clay. So if you pull
It
that out, you're
it
going to
grows
get a whole
into it.
clump of clay.
Yeah, so you get this weird red clump that comes out with every
Yeah.
plant that you pull out of there, and then you try to bury it back in or something, and you can't. It's just
So
it's just
I was telling them to pancake it, like the flatten the
yeah,
clay, pancake it, and then put everything on top of that. So at least the roots will grow down, but they can't wrap
yeah.
around.
So my aquarium box used to sell, and I've got one more bag of it, but my aquarium box used to sell red clay powder,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I use now. And so I'll just kind of dust it all the way on the very bottom of the tank, and just kind of put a little layer in there. And more than anything, I think it helps feed that bacteria down real down low. That that low oxygen bacteria and stuff.
And now you got a lot
So
of plants. You got a lot of plants. I got a lot of
yeah,
tanks. I got a lot of coral. Like some of these things I was looking at, I have to call people to take coral out because they can be like plants. They overgrow. What's your
yeah.
favorite plant? You got a lot of plants.
I love the Anubias. Those are my favorite plants. I've got so many. I've got like almost every variety of them. That's not true. I've got a lot of varieties of them.
They
Some of
just
them are
grow
too
so
huge.
they just grow so some grow so slow. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't keep the big ones, the giant Anubias. I couldn't keep those for some reason. I kept
Those
killing them.
Cophophilias and stuff.
I
Yeah,
kept killing them, and I don't know why. If one species would grow, and I guess it's kind of silly. One species, I guess, doesn't need the same thing the other does, but it's amazing how I see so many plants you've got, and I'm like, wow, he doesn't seem to kill plants. What am I doing wrong?
oh, I kill them. I kill them. I've got some. I got some Cophophilia. Those are my biggest Anubias. Or these, and they get like as big as my face. The leaves and stuff. That's
Oh,
big.
those are awesome.
Anyway, but they. I've started getting rot on some of those, and I don't know where that came from, but it's
Well,
like
like
you
the
get this kind of
rhizomes.
brown. Yeah, there's like a brown substance on the rhizome, and then you'll see everything past it. It just kind
Mm.
of melted away, and that's something new that I don't really know what to do with. I just cut off the rhizome, the bad part, and then I throw it away,
Well,
and I just put
what if
the
you
thing
took it
back in
out?
and hope it lives.
What if you took it out and wiped it? Like, but then again, what are you
I
going to
tried
wipe
to
it
kind of
with?
wipe it off. But I was like, what? Maybe an alcohol pad or something like that. You know, put some peroxide on it. You know, I don't know what you treat it like you do a person. I mean,
Yes, people, fish
that
folk are crazy. We do wipe. I wipe mine with peroxide. The
yeah,
peroxide
yeah. I've
definitely
done it for
helped.
algae.
Yeah,
I tell you, a plant I can't keep is buse, and I buy
abuse.
so much of it.
And it's not cheap,
That
man.
boost.
To buy the abuse and watch it die in front of you is like being beaten and whipped. It's like, don't die, baby, don't die.
And they always go slow too. It's like
Yes,
there's
and
another leaf gone.
bloop. It's like that Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Like you don't want to put a bulb on it. It's going bloop.
So some of them, okay. So what happens with me is like some of them do okay, and they grow, and
Abuse.
yeah, but most of them don't. And there's so many varieties, and they all look alike. Like they don't. Okay, they don't all look alike, but most of the ones like I've got like a brownie blue and this something pinky, and I open
Thank
them up and I'm like, these are all
The same looks
these are
like the
all the
same
same
thing.
plant.
Well,
This
it's the
guy's
same thing.
freaking. I got ripped
What's
off.
well, it's the same thing with coral. I mean, I've been keeping saltwater over the years when corals didn't really have names. They were like, okay, this is a red one. This is a mushroom. Now you have like the Superman Monty and the SpongeBob Zoas and things like that. Some coral do well in a tank, and I have one tank. I could take Zoas, and they're beautiful. Zoas are red in the middle and blue on the outside and orange, and I'll put it in my tank upstairs and it go beep. And I'm like, I have all this equipment upstairs and nothing downstairs. And you can do vice versa and put a I had freaking 150 $50 frags, which is expensive to me, cheap to others, in this little 20-gallon nano, and they grew, Sean, to the point they were overgrown. Was cutting so much in this tank that I was like, wait, I didn't intend for this to do like that. Where I'm trying to grow it in the 125 and I can't get it to stay alive. And I'm like killing myself, like, what am I doing in this tank that I'm not doing in that tank? And it is so nerve-wracking. Like, has that happened to you? I mean, yeah, well, you said with the plants, you can take one
Yeah.
plant and move the water. I've moved the water and put it in the same thing, and it just doesn't like it. And then I'll have somebody that just bought the tank 3 months ago. They put fish in it, and they don't even know how they're growing stuff. And I'm like, wow, you never stop learning in this hobby.
Well, people look at my Anubias and say, "Oh, wow, how do you keep them so algae free?" And I was like, "Well, the ones with algae on it, I cut away,
Spoiler.
and then I film it." Now, I've gotten the point. Once you hit that balance, you
Mm-hmm.
don't get algae on stuff.
Yeah.
You don't. That's. I mean, you're always going to have some algae, but it's usually not that bad. Like it's the kind you can like clean up in 3 minutes and then take a picture of your tank. I've had uh, my most popular aquarium on my channel right now is the Mega Flex, the Fluval
That's a nice
Flex
thing.
32-gallon, and
Because
it's full of it. Like
that angle is so intriguing.
it's bizarre, isn't it? It's
It's
like
intriguing.
reverse. What do they call it? Bow front. Yeah, it's
I
like a
call it
bow front over on the
I
side.
call it a boob front. Because it's like boobs.
Yeah. Yeah, or the pregnant tank.
Pregnant tank.
Got my Juno mug. This reminds me of my
Oh
Mega
wow.
Flex right here.
Now that was a long time ago. Juno's grown now.
Yeah, it's really changed a lot these days.
So
But
now
the
what can we do to get you back into that saltwater? And I'm not just a saltwater
oh
guy. I started freshwater. I keep freshwater years and years. I love this hobby because I started the hobby with freshwater and I've kept so many different types of fish. The saltwater fish are just like an extension of that. But I am always so amazed at how intimidating it is to people. But like
I think
Farm Boy Reef, he's
I'd
the
like to
opposite.
try.
He says freshwater is so difficult. I don't know. He said the guy has 500-gallon tanks, 400. He's got huge tanks, but the saltwater's easy. Oh no, I just do this and that and this. And people are like, what? You do what? But the freshwater, he's like, I don't want to mess it up. It's so complicated. So it's just getting no, it's a I mean, to people saltwater is intimidating, but some people that mastered saltwater say freshwater is so intimidating. The plants, how do you grow the plants? And you're saying that
For me, it's like I can't pull the water out of my sink and throw it into the aquarium when I want to do a water change. I got to make some special arrangements. Now, I know you can
touche.
you need RO around just to top it off, if it gets some too much evaporation or something. But man, that's a big jump for me, like being able to do one to the other. My daughter didn't have a big deal because she was at that store
Mm-hmm.
4 times a week. She just brought it home with her from work, and I can do that too, you know. But
You can keep
that's
it,
what keeps me from, or I can mix it myself and set up an RO system, or bring RO water home and then mix the salt myself. I could do that too, but
or
I
or
it's like, or
before we had RO units, and don't everybody write hate mail at once. Because when I got into this hobby, and I'm not going to say when I got into this hobby, when we started
I've got it
saltwater,
right here.
when we started saltwater, my first saltwater tank that I ever saw was at a place called Al's Aquarium. And I think that was 92, maybe earlier, 99, something like that. We didn't have RO units.
Wow.
We didn't think about protein
Yeah.
skimmers were not invented until the early 90s. There was no
Oh,
protein
really?
skimmer. when we first started keeping saltwater tanks, there were no protein skimmers. That came from our magnificent friends overseas, the Europeans, the Germans, invented the Berlin system, the lift system of using foam fractioning. I'm using big words now. I'm trying to educate. Keep foam
Ooh.
fractioning came way after keeping saltwater fish. So you could keep saltwater fish in a tank with tap water, but the maintenance was different. I mean, you just had to clean the tank and establish the cycle, and you didn't get. It's the same thing. I want to say it's the same thing. Behind this laptop is a 40 breeder with my native fish, and it's tap water. I started it with tap water. It's running for, I guess, 2 months now. It's no sump. It's all inclusive. I built a partition. I put the bulkheads in it. There's no algae in it. There's no protein. The protein
So it's
skimmer
doing good?
it's not on. It's not turned on. It's a return pump. There's bio blocks in there, and there's sand. It has live sand, and that's it. Minimal light. There's no high intense light, low intensity light. There's no corals in it. I'm cycling it with my saltwater mollies, which I love, Mutt and Jeff here, and it's going. So now we continue to stay the course and then add a fish and watch for algae growth. So you can keep a saltwater tank with tap water. I don't want
Hmm.
people out there to say that, oh, you can't keep it. You're absolutely going to get algae. Does it help to have RO water? Yes, because you're not introducing nutrients or whatever that may be in your tap. But you got to remember, some people's water is different than others. Your water may be different than my water in New York. You may have old metal pipes. I may have brand new PVC pipes. People are not taking that under consideration. They're just saying, oh, my tap water is bad.
Oh yeah, there's so many different. Just the mineral content of somebody's water in one city versus another, or the way their sewage is treated. Like um, all of our water is in this kind of circular thing. Like it goes in the down the toilet, it goes and it gets treated, and then it comes right back.
That's
Yummy,
scary.
yummy,
Tastes like
yummy,
chicken.
yummy. We
What's that,
all the
Salisbury
water
steak?
that's. Hope you like birth control.
Well, that came up in New York water.
Yeah, it
Probably
doesn't
everybody.
come out. It's not filtered.
Yeah, but you can actually ask your county for your water treatment report, and they'll tell you the breakdown, what they treated with, this and that. It's pretty scary. It's pretty. These poor fish, if they knew, they'd be holding up ticket signs. But that's why I say when I added that tap water to that little tank, the fish are doing fine. The fish actually colored up. I'm new to keeping killifish, so I have my what is it, aphosimians, some aphosimian. I have some Vividhatum. I always say it, pronounce it wrong. So I'm keeping them a very specific pH, and I didn't want to just use a tap water. I said, let me try it out.
Sure.
The tap water. And when I saw that plant die, I kind of panicked because I was like, wow, that water made that much of a difference. And
You're
you
like,
know,
are the fish next?
well, this is freshwater. So I was like, well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to add that to the saltwater tank, or I'll add it to the smaller cube where it's not really reef oriented and see what the effect is. But if you do what you do with plants, with coral, it won't have the same effect because coral use nutrients, not nitrate and phosphate, not in the same way plants do. Like plants will grow and utilize more. Corals will grow to a point where they, okay, the phosphate level's too high for me to absorb it. And now what do I do with it? And some coral will do good, some will do bad.
Hmm.
But your rock, your bacteria, are still in the rock. I could take that rock,
I,
give it to a friend, help them start another tank.
I'd probably. I think I'd like to maybe do a little fish only tank. Get a little clownfish that's neat and just try to enjoy that.
What's the
I
matter with
really like shrimp a
artificial?
lot too.
What's the matter with
Huh?
artificial plants? What's the matter with art? I'm loving my SpongeBob. Shout out to Jerry Brostick. Let me tell you, shout out to
I like your
Jerry at
SpongeBob and your
Penplax.
Squidward houses.
Oh man, my daughter said, "What do you do?" My daughter, like, she's the one. If I change something, she's the one that notices. She's like, "Wow, I really like how you changed the tank," because I didn't realize. To me, I'm seeing coral. I'm seeing people that come over the house have no idea what it is. Usually they don't even know it's real, but they automatically, hey, that's the pineapple from SpongeBob. They're like, oh wow, that's I thought it was exciting. You can have a beautiful tank and not focus on being what somebody else wants you to be. You can get artificial plants. You can just get rock. I mean, and when we maintained plants, when I was a kid, I had a little tank maintenance business. My mother talked me into doing a tank maintenance business, basically relatives and neighbors. I would switch out the rocks. I would clean the rocks. I would have rocks to switch out with them. I would put the rock in there. I'd take the old one out. I'd clean it and put like a cap full of bleach and rinse it out in baking soda, neutralize it and clean it and yada and switch it out. And they loved it because it was no headache. They didn't have to worry about the coral. They didn't have to worry about two-part. They didn't have to have all these different lights $8,000 and all of this stuff. But
Yeah.
you can have a beautiful tank and just have the right decoration.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you on that.
What
I
if
mean,
you have
like
what if you have a tank that looks like a planted tank, but it's salt water? But they could be artificial. They could be artificial plants.
George was talking to me about saltwater plants. What did he call those?
Yeah, all kind of
They're
plants.
like types of algae or something.
Yeah,
That
you have all kind of chaetomorpha and biota and all kind of. You got mangroves plants, and I've never really done good with mangroves. You have all kind of aquatic plants that you can grow in the saltwater, just
huh,
using the same principles that you use in freshwater. So
wow.
you could even try that.
I'd
You can
be
try
curious.
that. You can try that. And it's,
So
if you do it with the
what's with the
fluval,
blue?
the
What's
blue
with the blue
lights,
light?
the blue
Is that
lights
for
are
coral?
spectrum. They're a spectrum. Like you with plants. Um, this tank was really struggling. And wow, when I tell you, I don't know if you can see this. I reach over. I have plants that are growing from the back of the tank down and around. You can see this growing.
Here,
This is
post
at
those.
least 8 foot of plant that I'm going to use that lighting on saltwater and try to grow the plants in the saltwater environment. Blue lights are spectrum. The way you have aquatic lights for plants, 6,500 Kelvin, optimal. Wow, now I smell like mint. Okay. The optimal light spectrum for saltwater is a mixture of blues, which are the ones you see most in the hobby, the blue actinic lights, and the daylights. It's a mixture in order to accomplish what we call the depth. Once you get a certain depth in the water, like this bottle, you'll see it's lighter
Uh-huh.
on top, and where the liquid is moving, it's darker. As it penetrates the water, the spectrum is different. We're trying to copy this underwater spectrum with our lights. So we have the daylight, which is penetrating, and we have a deeper nanometric light, the 460 or 10,000 K or 20,000 Kelvin lights for your blue for the coral, because they
The
don't come from
antennic
the same
blue, or yeah.
they don't come from the same environment as the freshwater, but there are such thing as brackish water plants. All my cichlid people out there, that's saltwater, and there are plants there. So if you put two and two together, if you have monos, the mono fish, mollies, they grow in a salt, heavily brackish water environment in some places, and there's plants there. If you can grow those plants in your fluval chi, then guess what? You got a saltwater tank
Hmm.
with plants.
So, I was looking at your early videos.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, "Oh no!"
Oh, I love
But
it. From humble beginnings.
I
I
thought
didn't
it
know what
was.
the hell I was doing. I was just like, hey, I got a camera. Look, this is my tank. All right, I'm done.
Well, you and I did a lot of the same kind of videos of the music and the aquarium and stuff, and they were
Mm-hmm.
just talking about your tanks. But I remember you had the Hurricane Sandy stuff.
Oh man,
And I
yeah.
was wondering, was that the biggest disaster your tanks have had to endure since you've had them?
That was the biggest disaster. And knock on wood, I didn't lose one coral. I didn't lose one fish. My wife's aunt was like, "Why didn't you guys come over and stay at my house?" We didn't have power for a week and a half. And it was October, so it was like Halloween, like we were going on winter. I was literally
Oh
going
yeah.
outside and getting branches. We had all these branches and trees fell over. I was getting branches from outside and throwing them in the fireplace and to keep the house warm, like in burning wood. And I had all these battery operated pumps. I had a battery operated pump in the basement and a battery operated pump my main reef tank. I didn't have all these tanks then. And I was in a state of panic because the fish stores were losing fish. And one of my favorite stores, World Class, which isn't here anymore, they've kind of retired. He was literally 5 blocks away. He's like, "How many fish did you lose? I know you lost a few." And I was like, "Wow, I didn't lose anything." He's like, "Get the hell out of here. I don't believe you." And I was like, "No, really, I didn't lose any fish." The beautiful thing is my tank was opposite my patio window. So during the day, I would open the patio, like the blinds, and let the
Uh-huh.
light come in. And I ran that pump, and the basement was completely dark. So the plants in the basement had no light for a week. So I just had a window, one little basement window. The light in the room would shine for X amount of hours in a day. And God is good. I didn't lose any fish, and I didn't lose any coral, and I didn't lose any plants. I've lost more putting that damn tap water in that killing tank in one day. But I had friends that totally lost everything. Some of my people, I'm near the water. I'm not too far from the water. I didn't get the flooding, but I got the damage to the house, ripped the side of the house off. You could see almost into my house. It ripped all the siding off the side. Roof was damaged. It was cold. It was raining. And I learned some valuable lessons from that. That humble, that we have all this technology. We have controllers, we have alarms, we got expensive lights. The science is still the science. Fish need circulation no matter what. They need oxygen exchange no matter what. So no matter how much you pay for a light, if that light fails, what are you going to do? What's your backup? In
Hmm.
Sandy, I learned some valuable lessons. If you guys are out there with tanks and don't have at least one battery operated pump, they sell them in tackle stores, they sell them in Bass Pro Shops. They usually cost about 10, 15 bucks. That was my saving grace. I would definitely always have one. I will, to this day, I will always have 3 or 4 of those now.
Yeah, I remember you actually made a video after things kind of got back to normal or normal-ish, and you're really adamant that those pumps were very
Oh,
important. They're
the
not very
pumps save me.
expensive, and
They're cheap.
yeah, yeah,
And it's amazing because we'll spend hundreds of dollars on things, but a little thing like a battery operated pump, it just ran. All you heard in my house was all night, all day. There was no television. We had a radio. We had a radio, like the emergency radios that you crank. They don't run on batteries. We used to use
right,
them
right,
for like the fire department. You crank it up. In our family,
uh-huh.
we would take turns cranking that radio and we listened to music and we played Uno, and you heard that air pump going off for a week and a half. And then I bought a
Well,
generator. I says, I don't know how long this is going to go. I says, I got to get a
yeah.
generator. The generator came on it had to be a Thursday. I was opening the box and the lights came on. And I was like, son of a, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. The lights came, the generator, I was taking it out of the box to see how to work, and the lights came on. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Have you ever needed it since then?
Yeah, and guess what? The gas was old. I never took the gas. I screwed the generator up, and it's literally sitting outside, useless now.
Oh no!
Because I didn't know anything about generators. The lights came on, so I never used it. I put gas in. I tried to use
Right.
it one time, but if you don't keep maintaining those generators, we had a blackout, I think the year before, and I was like, oh, let me fire up the generator, and it was like, brrr. And I was like, oh man, I had old gas in there. And I screwed it up, so I have to clean that. But those battery
Yeah, I
operated
think
pumps
you
worked.
know. They make those. What's cool too is they make all these like with USB plugs.
Oh
They
yeah.
make all these tiny US like aquarium co-ops got all those little USB pumps that are real small, and then you can run those off anything that powers USB. So now they got all
Yeah.
those batteries to keep your
Battery
phones.
backups. Yeah.
So you can kind of make I've got battery backups on my computer. It's funny, my computer at work. I used to have an aquarium at work back when I was in the office. We're kind of doing the work from home thing for
Mm-hmm.
the most part now. So, but I uh, I unplugged one of my monitors from the battery backup and plugged my pump in. So if the
Who needs
power,
to
because
see?
well, the power would go out all the time and stuff. So I just like I had two monitors, right? So
They're like,
I'd still have
production's
something.
down 30%. But the
Yeah,
tank's running. The tank's running.
I
Oh,
can
go about your
I can
business.
alt tab my way through it as long as the aquarium keeps running.
But that's a good point. I'm gonna
So
actually I have those and I actually friend of mine uses the USB air pumps. I don't know how
uh-huh.
long they run though. That's a good idea. I need to get one of those.
Well, it's just cool that you can plug them into all these things that they've made for cell phones. I
Mm-hmm.
think, like I don't know how long they'd work or if they'd be as good as like the direct battery powered ones, but it's an option. It's definitely, especially if there's a run on those or you can't find them, as long as you got some kind of little air pump and a battery to plug it into,
Hey, I
it
got
can.
solar powered pumps outside. I'd never put power on my tubs outside. They run off the solar power pumps. I have the 70, I have 50, I have 40-gallon tubs. I've grown all these fish with no power, no outlet, no nothing. They go off at night and they cut on in the day. So, guys were emailing me, well, what happens at night? The pump's going to cut off. And I says, well, I guess the same thing that happens in the lake. The fish go to sleep. I mean, it oxygenates the water enough to sustain them. In the morning, it cuts back on, and it's a cycle. So
I
I
tell
would
you
love,
what.
I'd
I'm
love to
sorry.
be
Go
able,
ahead.
I'd love to be able to like run the solar power, into the tank. I mean, run something I can run in a window or air in a hole or something.
Yeah, outside there's a more optimized period of time where they'll work.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you really want the most out of solar power, they make things that'll like see where the sun is, and they tilt to match the angle of the sun, so you get
Okay.
that power all
All,
optimal power all day long. Um, Laying them flat works, but it's like suboptimal, then it's
yeah.
optimal, and then it
At
gets
noon,
suboptimal
yeah, the
again.
sun angle
Yeah,
moves and you're screwed.
yeah. So, but they still work. I what
It beats
changed the
nothing.
thing
It
that
beats having nothing.
well, so I went to have you heard of L.R. Britz?
Yeah.
He's a yeah. So I went to his house. He's the only YouTuber I've ever been to their house
Yeah.
and looked at their
Oh,
stuff.
he's not far. He has a lot of
Yeah,
stuff in there too. He's got a lot of stuff in there.
well, he's got like 300 tanks,
He
and I don't
took
think
them
any of
apart
them.
at one point. Didn't he knock the whole room down and build it again? I was like, you've got to be kidding. I would have died taking all those tanks out.
But he doesn't have a filter in any of them. Like he doesn't have any. There's no
Just
bubbling. There's no filter. There's nothing in
no
there. I said,
sponges?
well, what? No.
Wow.
I was like, well, what moves the water around? And he's like, well, they all have fins. So I was like,
Wow. I
you
have to
got to
go.
be kidding me.
I got to look at it again now.
It is he
Because he has like 100, 200-gallon tanks. He has like 100-gallon tanks in there.
and white shag carpet.
Ooh, that's a brave
I don't
man.
know how he does that.
I don't know
The,
either. Did you curl your toes
uh,
up on it? Did you take your shoes up, curl your toes in the shag?
yeah, well, I was like, well, we need to take our shoes off because of the carpet and stuff. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, you got,
You got water in
man, I
there.
don't even. There's a reason like none of my camera angles go very far down because I got carpet up here and I have screwed it up, man. There didn't take many like accidental like trying to carry a filter from the garbage can or something.
There it goes. One
Drop
shot.
some. Got a nice little black spot over here. And cat puke
Yeah,
over here,
I'm
and then he's
I'm
got that
guilty of
white
that.
that carpet is pristine.
What
It was
would make you
beautiful. It was
put white carpet? That's just like the ultimate. I got white carpet. That's a brave man.
I don't know. I thought it was crazy, but you know what? It looks good. It was.
Yeah, because who else is
He
going to
kept
do
it
it?
nice and clean,
Who else is
but
going to do
he's
it?
not. Yeah, I don't know. But he had such an amazing collection of like fish and shrimp and stuff, and I was well, I felt like everything I knew about filtration and stuff just went. It's like
Shout out,
okay,
shout out to Brett because
yeah,
I've asked him 50,000 questions. And thank you because my shrimp are a year and a half strong. I was never able to keep shrimp. Never the most intimidating thing to me. I buy a shrimp and it disappears. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
oh yeah,
I've got several series of shrimp now, several generations of shrimp now, and neocaradinas, and I have some blue, what is it, blue moons or blue ice or blue smurf or something shrimp. And I'm like, shout out to him and shout out to a lot of YouTubers out there. Just shout out to you. Shout out to the people that take their time and share the science. Not just, well, my tank's running and this is how I did it, but sit and says, I use this kind of substrate because, and I feed them this because yeah, I mean, we never start and we never stop learning. We're always learning. I would have never thought I could have
yeah.
swore he had filters on those tanks. I have to look at it again. That's
No, I
amazing.
mean, I was, I was extremely enthralled. Like I could have spent like a week there. I
Disney
was only
World,
there for a couple
look out.
hours. I was just like, and he'd have tanks that had like algae, like crazy algae. He's like, that's the best tank to breed fish in and stuff.
Yeah, the
I'm like,
algae. I know he has a lot of plants in some you couldn't even see. He'd
oh
be
yeah,
taking out
very well
arms
planted.
full.
See, with me, like every one of my tanks is like a. I don't have any like project tanks. They're all show tanks. Like they're all meant to be looking as good as they can. You know, I don't have any where I'm like, well, let's let the algae go nuts in there and see what happens. I might have one. I've got one that it just won't cooperate, but but I want it to be beautiful.
Well,
But I wish I don't have a dedicated fish room. It's all my crap's all over the house.
yeah,
I got, like your tank in
guilty.
the living room and stuff. Yeah. So I mean, happy wife, happy life.
That's right. Make it
Uh,
work.
it can't. I make those things look nice so they can still be there.
I
Because if
built the
they're
stand just because the old thing was something I kind of had in the basement. I just had a tank on it, and then I built a bridge
right,
from that stand to the wall, and it was like, oh, now it's getting a little crazy. So I was like, I had to make it nice. Like I had to make it nice. I
yeah,
never. I always said I don't like fish rooms. I don't like the idea. I just not like I don't like fish rooms. I don't like the idea of just a bunch of tanks because it felt like you don't give one tank enough attention. You just have a bunch of tanks. And if you're breeding it, what I'm saying makes no sense. It's just to me, it was like I just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tanks. But now I have 13 tanks. But they
well,
become
it's a
one of them gets
utility at that
neglected.
point,
Yes. Like
right?
this 2.5. I had a guy that says, "Oh, D is a member of our club. He breeds the most beautiful killifish that you would ever." He just breeds them, and he's like a young guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, bifidobacter. Oh, I got a few of those. I go, what do you want? The orange speed?" He doesn't call them by their layman's names. He insists that they have to be the Latin name. So I had to make little labels because if I speak to him, I says, "Oh no, the Aphysinium bivitatum. Oh, okay, that one. That one's a genus from this wake body and this and that." But he gave me a little heads up. He says, D, I'm going to give you a pair of killifish. You always said you wanted to try it. I'm going to give you a pair. He gives me 3 breeding pairs at like 9 o'clock at night. And then he says, by the way, the tap water in my house is 6.0. And I say, 6.0? How could you? I said, are you drinking acid? I says, how could? I says, now what am I going to do? I'm in my house and I tested the water and it's like 6.5. And I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? Now I got to get this water. And that started 2 tanks. That started this tank here, which is my bivitatum tank. I got a pair here, and I have another pair there with another species. And you become another labor of love. Like you say, it can't be a junkie tank. It has all the plants in it. This one just has the spawning mop. And there you go. This is how I become a fish room. You're up to 50 of them. But I'm
Yeah, it's like
eventually
I've
going
got
to
to.
phase this out. I am going to phase this tank out because it kind of just took away from my cube and
Yeah.
put them into one. I just wanted to, I'll probably build something custom where I can just put a divider in it and put the two species in there. But you know my pain.
So
Take it down and build it again.
you've got some horse troughs or something in the backyard for your summer tubbing
Yeah, I
projects.
have a 6 foot Horf trough I got from some aquaculture people on the other side of Brooklyn. They were aquaponics guys and they were trying to
Uh
grow
huh.
vegetables and failed like a couple of times. And they're like, are we going to do something different? And I ran into them on Craigslist and drove out to there and we brainstormed. And I was telling them how they could connect the fish room to the plant room, like connect it in species. And we kind of brainstormed. They was like, they ran it across the room and they was like, well, we don't need this tub. We'll sell you the tub. I was like, great, I'll do this outside. And the extra space was really a blessing because the amount of plants that you can grow in 6 foot tub outside with Mother Nature's light is probably better than you'll do in years and with artificial light. I grow Rotala outside. I grow the biggest swords that you ever seen outside. They're literally massive outside. I grow uh, cryptocorna, which really eluded me for a long time. They melt. They don't melt outside. Well, they do, and they come back really big, and then they melt back in the house. And
Right.
Vallisneria, everything just grows and grows, and it's so beautiful outside. That yeah, the horse trough I got. I have my white cloud bin. I have a 20-gallon bin, which actually recently split because I left in the winter with my white clouds that I breed outside. They winter up outside. They stay over the winter. It literally freezes. The top freezes and the fish kind of hibernate in
Oh,
there.
your white clouds do?
They winter up outside. This will be their second winter outside. So I'll shoot a video and see how that update is because the bin literally split. So the troughs don't split. They're a little hardier, but you
Right.
can't
Yeah.
just get any bin. So the white clouds are awesome fish. I have a few of them in here. I have my breeds of Daniels. I kind of have my, I call them mine, but I'm sure somebody else bred them. I have a long fin leopard zebra Daniel. It's spotted on the back and striped in the front like a striped bass with long fins. And I was like, okay, I bred them
Huh.
outside, just a crossbreed. And I bring them inside in the summer. I leave some outside to try to winter them. And you come up with a really hardy fish, really tough.
I've my cherry red shrimp overwinter in my pond. Now I'm a
Outside.
lot further south. Yeah. And I was shocked. Like I try to gather everything up. Like when it starts to get a little bit cold, because
Hmm.
I tend to put like my guppies out there and stuff, and they just go nuts. And then I just give them to friends or feed them to the bigger fish.
I
like,
couldn't collect the
who needs
shrimp.
1,000 guppies?
Yeah, right.
But
Who
they
needs 1,000 freaking white clouds? I had 5 buckets of plants at the end of the. I had this. If you multiply this tank, which is 2 feet high, 2 foot cube. Actually, this is 30 inches high. I couldn't. I had nowhere to put 5 things of plants. I was giving them away. I was going to fish stores. I put them in the mulch, the compost heap. It was amazing how much you grew outside.
oh, wow. So is it hard? What's your period of time there? There up in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, we get right now we're still getting 40-degree nights sometimes, like 37 to 40-degree nights. So I wait until the end of May. My time is usually the end of May, not even June, but the end of May, maybe the first week in June. I always say when largemouth bass season starts, the fish should already be outside. So I put the plants out before I put the fish out. I put the plants in the tubs and fill it with garden water. I don't treat that too much. I fill it with a hose. I'll throw some conditioner in there and let the plants kind of tell me when it's safe to put the fish in. When they're standing up and they're looking decent, I'll test the water and put them out there. But we've
Mm-hmm.
gotten nights. I've kept fish out until way past after Thanksgiving, and we have had 20-degree nights. And I actually just found fish that I thought I had took out. There were still fish in the tub. This is the first year I didn't empty it at the end of the year. There were fish still
Uh-huh.
out there. There was still fish, and there was at least 3 to 4 inches of ice over that tub. And they were white clouds. And I'm hoping that there were killies in there because I had some killifish. But I don't know how you get shrimp. I put shrimp out there. I have no way of getting them out.
Well, I I could drain it. I drain the water, and I just kind of do like just take the net and do it real quickly over the top. And sometimes, like, there's been a couple of times where I had a lot of shrimp in there, and I would get a lot. I feel like I got a lot of them, right? But I'd always know that they're just so crafty. They're going to be in the
Yeah.
filter. They're all over the place, and I just started not worrying about it because I'd come back the next year and I was like, oh my gosh, there's shrimp running around in there. They made it iced over and everything. Well, I didn't know that they could do that. So now I just leave them.
So that's a
And I've
hardy
always,
shrimp. They'll be
yeah,
really hardy.
yeah, they're just a little plain cherry red shrimp. Those the most basic freshwater shrimp there is. I've got only one aquarium plant that's lived through the winter, so I've tried to put every kind of aquarium plant in there too, right? Because I was like, I got all these plants. Because I'm always trimming them, and
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but I throw away a lot. Throw away a lot of plants. I should be mailing
Mm-hmm.
them all. I mail them to friends a lot too and stuff, but I don't. I don't have a club here to go trade them with people. So I really
Where
envy
are you?
your club. Well,
Where are
down in
you?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, there's a club in Tennessee. Well, it probably maybe not be close to you though.
No, there's some. Well, there's some kind of Facebook groups and stuff, but as
Mm-hmm.
far as like
Yeah,
clubs
meeting and
like the
exchange.
Brooklyn Aquarium Society, there's nothing like that. Or the stuff that they have, like Rachel's club, the uh,
Mm-hmm. PA.
Capital Cichlid Association. Man, I'm so jealous of that. I wish I lived close enough
You
to
got to
go to
start
those
one.
things.
You got to start one.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Oh
Oh my
no.
God.
Yeah, I'm too busy.
I
So,
did.
but dwarf Sagittarius, if you haven't tried it yet,
I have it outside
dwarf
now. I
sag.
wintered that up
Yeah,
in the pot,
yeah.
like in a
Mine
glass.
overwintered, and I was like, finally.
Wait, that look? That's the same look I had when I was like, it's green.
They're alive.
10,000
Eureka!
gigawatts.
So now every time I trim dwarf sag, it goes to my pond.
Yeah,
I'm just
I'm
going to make it
amazed.
a grassy wasteland in there.
And it was green. It didn't melt down. It stayed green the whole
Right?
year, cold. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because now I'll buy some more. I'll put it out there. But
I'll mail you some.
the swords and things I bring in, like I bring those
Yeah.
in, and they really do well. They don't like when I bring them in, so I started making the like DIY plant pots that I could just basically do
Uh-huh.
like this and know that it's going to fit in the tank, and then I take it from the tank and put it outside.
Well,
And
that helps a lot.
yeah, and I have the valve that this valve took off so much that if I pull that up, it probably the roots are probably the whole tank now. So how
Oh,
are you?
yeah.
Do you trim the leaves back, or is that a really bad thing? Some
Like for
people
jungle
say it's a
val and
bad.
stuff.
Yeah, some people say it's bad. Some people do it and don't care.
Okay, I had Val maybe I've had it like two times, two different species of it.
Mm-hmm.
And what it seemed like is that if you cut it, it just dies. Like the end of the plant will die.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with jungle val, it's always like just a new shoot and a new shoot.
Mm-hmm.
But it grows so fast. It was so invasive that
Yeah.
I just pulled it out and gave them to friends
Yeah. This
because I was
one.
like, it was choking out all the other plants.
Yeah. This one. I've managed to keep it to the front of the tank. So
Yeah.
it's kind of running along the front of the tank and going around. But I have a lot of plants fighting it for nutrients now. Like I've added the herbs and things to try to compete for nutrients with the val. I think the val is one of those weeds, like you say, it's invasive.
Yeah.
So I put the mint, and now the mint is growing out of the tank. So anytime I'm going to work, like which if you have your mask, if you want to wear the mask, grow mint. All you do is rub this on your mask if you're gonna go out. Oh, and it's beautiful.
Oh, but that smells
I
great.
just sit here and I'm like, oh, it's beautiful. And it competes with the valve. So I just look and see which plants grow the fastest, and I put it in the tanks with like the newts like kabamba or things like guppy grass or things like that that really grow
Oh
thick.
yeah,
And they kind of balance out. It's like saltwater.
yeah.
I'm really on
I'll
the
send you some
fence. Yeah, Anubis. Oh yeah.
I'll send you some Anubis and stuff next time I trim, and you see if you get luckier with that.
Oh man, the
They
Anubis, Java Fern I'm good with. The Nubius is hit or miss. I think this kind actually I have some Anubis in here which are getting covered now that I'm looking. The Val is kind of shading it. So I'm gonna probably do
yeah.
some trimming now that springtime is coming. Well, springtime is here.
So do you are you've been a member of the Brooklyn Aquarium Society for a long time. All
Yeah.
your even your oldest videos, you're talking about it. Some of them. So, are you a officer in there or something? Do
Yeah,
you help organize?
I'm the membership chairperson. A lot of our people have moved, or we have a board. I'm a member of the board, so we're longest running aquarium society, which means we have members of all ages. I try to jump in and add whatever I can add. Being a membership chairperson, I'm the guy that greets you at the door. I'm like, welcome to the club, and I meet the kids and go, oh, so you have a tank? Like a lot of people that join are a lot of new hobbyists that go to the stores. I tried to get the places like the Petcos and not to draw members, but if people are starting a new tank, I tell them let them know that there's aquarium society out there. So we have like Q&A when we do meet in person when all of this is over. We have speakers from all across the country. We've had Joe Ayulo, saltwater speakers. We have Rachel Leary. We have freshwater speakers. Joey Mullins came down. Joey, shout out to Joey. He actually auctioned the shirt off his back. The little kid was so excited to meet Joey. Started his tank, and
Yeah.
I want Joey to know that kid is still running his tank. Brooklyn, beautiful tank, has angels. I'm so proud of them. And that's why I joined the club. So I'm in charge of membership. I keep track of who's a member. I tell, oh, your member is going to expire, or do you need a club? Do you need help? We have a hotline that we have on our website. It's like, oh, if a girl called me last week, she had beta. She bought beta. She bought the tank. She bought the light. The betas are dying. She says, oh my God, I want to donate these fish. I realize I can't take care of them. Do you have somebody that could take care of this fish? And whereas we're not meeting in person, I actually drove across Brooklyn 45 minutes. I picked up this tank. The poor girl was in tears. She was in tears, literally, because she had brand new tank, gravel, everything, decorated. She couldn't take care of the fish. I have one of them here, actually. She had two betas. She says, oh my God, they look so stressed. One of them, this one was sick. This little gal is in quarantine here. Beautiful, beautiful ivory white beta. She
Oh
was in
yeah.
quarantine, so I'm nursing her back to health. I'm treating her, taking care of the fish, and I send the woman an update. I says, "Oh, here's a picture of your fish. They're doing good." And this is what the club is all about. We're saltwater and freshwater all across the five boroughs: Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, Manhattan. We got people that come in from Connecticut, come from New Jersey to share the love of fish. We're crazy people. Fish people are crazy.
But you're crazy together.
Yeah,
You know,
men,
I
women, children, all walk shapes. There's no discrimination. When I tell you there's no discrimination, everybody becomes one when it comes to fish. They're like, oh, you have pseudochromis, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, yeah, I have that, blah, 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 I have this species. And it's a lot of fun. So, always shout out to everybody, all the other board members that make it happen. We meet. We're now that we're not meeting in person, we have our live streams the second Friday of every month. We try to get the best speakers from, we got to get you on here. We got to put you on here and talk about your experiences. Every different
sure I'll do
experience
it.
in the hobby is a story that someone else probably has and say, oh, I tried to do that too. Or I tried to do that. Maybe I need to know how he did it. And just a great bunch of folks. We have over 100 members. We had really taken a hit with the COVID thing. So now we're doing everything
Yeah.
virtual. We have the Facebook page and we're doing what we can do to keep people going.
It'll come back. It'll come back. I work for a movie theater company, so I understand.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's
It's
tough.
like we're trying to just grind it up, or try, get our engines going and get everything moving again.
Yeah, it's really
Hopefully,
tough,
we all.
but we'll
Yeah,
do
it
it.
really is.
I mean, as a
We'll
country,
do
we're
it.
tough. We're tough. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm working at a vaccination hub. I work for the city of New York, in various capacity, and I'm working at a vaccination hub, keeping the world safe and stuff. I work in the schools and things. And a woman told me a lot of people were older and coming in, and the woman says, I survived smallpox. I will survive this too. And I was like, God bless you. They thought it was the end of the world. She said, I survived. One guy came in, he says, I fought in 4 wars. I was like, holy, the guy was 97 years old. He fought through Vietnam, World War I, World Two. He fought through 4 wars. And he says, young
Korea.
man, this is
Wow.
just another, what he said, this is just another life experience or something to that extent. So, we'll make it out of this, and we'll make it through the social media and keeping in contact and letting each other know that it's going to be all right. I used to say in my older videos, keeping sanity by keeping my aquariums. And people are like, oh, do you have a mental, maybe he's got schizophrenia or something like that. And I was like, no, I was a latchkey kid. When I was a kid, I was the youngest of
Oh
five.
yeah,
My brother's
I was
10 years
too.
older
Yeah.
than me. He's 10 years older than me. So I'm in my 50s. He's 60. And then my sister, 10 years. I was the oops kid. I always say to mom, I was the last kid. Like, oh man,
Oops,
another
there he
kid.
is.
So I was home by myself a lot. And I would sit and my mother taught me how to DIY. My first DIY teacher was my mother. She gave me the first drill that I ever had. We had shop class. And my job was to take care of that tank. She bought that tank. It failed. It sat empty in it. You ever have a tank where it's empty and it stinks? Where it has that
Oh
little
yeah,
bit of
yeah.
water, just enough for it to smell horrible. So that kept me into fish and it kept us going. So all of the people in all of these clubs and all of these countries and around the world and across the country, if we can reach out to each other and keep each other going. If you need a speaker for your aquarium society and you're in Seattle, reach out to the Tennessee guy. What do you do in Tennessee? And you're in Tennessee, reach out to the New York guy or reach out to the Connecticut guy. It's a universal language.
Well, hopefully there's the aquatic experience will fire back up, and I'm hoping maybe I'll come and we can hang out a little bit more, have a little
Yeah,
bit more meaningful face
we
to
gotta have a
face.
beer. It was so rushed.
Yeah, I
My
know.
buddy Rico was there.
I
I always have fun with Rico. Rico is I'm claiming him as a New Yorker. I know he's not a New Yorker. Mike and Rico, great guy. There's so many great guys in this hobby.
yeah,
Because
it really is.
we're all kind of nerds, and you can't be amazed when you see. My wife came to one meeting, and it's usually me and my daughter. She's my running buddy with the shows. It used to be my son, but now he's grown. And we look at the corals. My wife looked at the fish, and she says, "Wait a minute, that coral says $2,500." And I says, "That's not the one I have." But she was like, "Oh my god!" Now, when she came home, you look at things different. Like you look at plants. She was like, "Wow, why is that plant $47?" Like 40. It was like a really beautiful aquascape tank, and it was like carpet. It's like, wow, that tank is like more than some people pay for their cars. You realize we spend more in the aquatic hobby than some people pay for their cars, and it's like amazing. So
It really
I
is.
didn't think I wanted her to come to shows anymore. She was like, "Wow, how much is that? That light costs that much?"
Busted. Busted. Well, you could say too was like, you know what, when I buy them, I
It
buy
was
this little
small.
frag and it grows into something that's worth a lot of
Yeah.
money. So if we ever needed cash, I could take a little chisel and
Yeah.
we
She's
just
always
have it,
nagging me. You
right?
should sell these things. You need a business plan. You need to market that. And I was like, yeah, it's the love of the hobby. I just love fish.
It's a tough
Anybody that knows
business
me.
to buy something tiny, wait for it to grow for 7 years, and then sell
And
it.
not kill it. And you're kind of
Right.
invested. You- Like fish. I have fish in the Brooklyn Reef tank, my aquatic hoolums. They're dimsels and four striped dimsels, which anybody keeps saltwater fish. they can be some of the meanest mothers in a tank. They're
Yeah.
kind of docile, but I tried to catch him one day. Like I was like, I'll catch him and I'll put him in another tank. And my daughter comes, she says, "What are you doing with the fish?" And I was like, "I'm gonna move." She says, "You can't move them. That's their home." And I was like, oh. I put him back in it. And I was like, "You're kind of right." Yeah, like, I felt so
Their
bad.
brains are like that big. They don't know.
They were all looking at me
They'll
like,
forget.
"Yeah, Tory for
I don't
president."
live in the same house my whole life. Maybe they're bored in there.
That's what I said. Well, that's as
All
bad
right.
as my son Crab that went on vacation. Yeah. He was about 4 years old. "When's Mr. Krabs coming back?" "Well, he's on vacation." "Well, it's a long vacation." So,
He's on a farm where he can run. He can run and
his
play.
hair's in the breeze, like, oh, wee.
Well,
Have
D,
you had to have that conversation? Like, have you kept fish a long time? Like the kids are little, and they're like, "Oh my God, what happened to the fish?"
no, Kerrigan was really pragmatic, like in a weird way. Like she's like, "This one's dead." How do you know? I poked it with a stick and it doesn't move.
I gave it an
What do we
aspirin.
do with it?
I gave it an
I was
aspirin,
like,
but it
well,
wouldn't swallow.
we flush them. She's like, "Well, do we have a funeral?" I was like, "You want to say some words? We'll say some words." So we've had some toilet side funerals and stuff, but she didn't get overly emotional about the trials of life and death. So at least
Thank
she
God.
wasn't super emotional about it.
No, I had to
Well,
bury her,
D,
big one. I had to bury her. Yeah.
we've gone really long,
You got a lot of
and I
editing to do,
really
buddy.
appreciate your time. Yeah,
It's
well, I'm not going to edit a lot because you and I had just had a great conversation. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. I think
fun,
you're a
man.
really cool guy, and I'm really thankful that you decided to come on and do this with me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm telling you, next time you see me, I'm gonna have that hairstyle because I'm loving it. I'm gonna figure it out, baby. You see me at the
This is
Aquatic
just me being
Experience,
cheap.
people. When you see me at the Aquatic Experience, don't recognize D because I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be flipping it back, baby. I shake my hair
They
back and
probably
forth. I
sell
shake
some
my
Justin
hair.
Bieber wigs or something.
Well, I'm gonna have one, man. I love it. You see, I grew the beard out. I was like, let it hang down.
Thank you
But
very
great,
much, D. I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm going to cut this off, and we can chat for a
great,
minute
man.
longer.
Great being here.
Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next week with another video. Next week we have Father Fish. I'll see you then.